West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
But you didn't advocate. You never advocated martial law. That President Trump should use martial law to stop, the transition of power. You never advocated for that, did you?
I don't recall ever advocating for martial law. If you put that text message up, it's clear and easy to read that if that's my text messages and that's what they're reporting, I don't recall if they are. But if they are, those text messages do not say calling for martial law.
So you're saying you conveniently don't recall pitching a plan to overthrow the government, but if you did do it, it's okay, right? Because you were just passing the message along? Okay. So for anyone who needs a reminder, here is what Marjorie Taylor Greene texted. Quote, in our private chat with members, several are saying the only way to save our republic is for Trump to call for martial law. Do ignore the spelling. And we know that she's not the only one, with Congressman Scott Perry suggesting using the Director of National Intelligence to overthrow the election. Meanwhile, Republican House leadership is downplaying any critique that they've previously made of the insurrection caucus in their party, frankly, because the insurrectionists are the party. Otherwise, why on earth would Steve Scalise deign to say, quote, I'm sorry if this caused you problems, to Matt Gaetz for suggesting that he may have acted illegally after the insurrection? And why hasn't Kevin McCarthy publicly defended his own comments about Gaetz putting Republicans in jeopardy? I mean, it seems like the only time in recent memory that he's been up in arms over behavior from a member of his caucus was when Madison Cawthorn accused Republicans of holding cocaine-fueled orgies. That, apparently, is the line that cannot and must not be crossed. All of this new information is coming to light as the January 6th committee is moving quickly. Moments ago, Chairman Benny Thompson announced they would hold their first of 8 public hearings starting on June 9th. Ahead of that, they plan to re-up their request for Republicans, including Lil Kevin McCarthy, to appear before the committee by the end of the week. With me now, Congressman Eric Swalwell of California. He was a 2021 impeachment member. I wonder what you make of Marjorie Greene's new strategy of just saying, I don't recall. Sounds like she's definitely got a lawyer and she's been talking to them a lot, but she simply doesn't recall. And Kevin McCarthy's indifference to that lack of recollection.
Joy, they talk such a big game all the time. And then when they're caught literally on audio or text message, they shrink. I just don't get it. I mean, they project all the time, right? They call Democrats snowflakes. But these people are so afraid to defend what they said privately. You saw Scott Perry running away from another network's reporter yesterday on the House steps. I mean, if this is what you believe, I don't agree with you. I think it's wrong, maybe traitorous, but why can't you defend it? And again, they are so weak. They're so afraid. They're so cowardly. But what they want to do in private should very, very much concern all of us, because if anything, they're even more emboldened by a Trump base that is more and more, supporting and more comfortable with violence than voting. And that's what we're up against right now.
Well, I mean, the thing is, what's interesting is that Republicans have shown that when they do want to rebuke and police their own, they can. They've come down like a ton of bricks on Lil Madison Cawthorn, not for his insurrectionism, not for, sort of fetishizing Hitler's bunker, not for the bringing the gun into the Capitol, not for any of the stuff that most people are aghast by, but because he said the boring thing. And once he said that, it does seem like a world of hurt. He's like getting leaked. The leaks are not coming from Democrats. They're leaking everything they can find on this guy. And even the senators from his home state is out savaging him. That's
right, Joy. You can lead an insurrection. You can say that the Catholic Church is run by Satanists. You can sympathize with gun laws that, embolden mass shooters. But the second you talk about the party's cocaine and orgies, you're done. You're toast. I mean, that's really where they are right now. This is a party that is tougher on Mickey Mouse than they are on Russia, harsher on Dr. Seuss than they are on insurrectionists. And of course, they have gone after Liz Cheney, who has, shown consistent integrity through and through, more tough than they have on Paul Gosar, who has threatened, through images and videos to kill Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Joe Biden.
Nightmare with me for just a moment, because you've had Kevin McCarthy, who essentially, he's not responding. He said, well, Trump had no reaction. He's basically saying Trump excused me for saying all the truth that I really believe. There's billboards running in his home state, basically calling him a liar. If he becomes speaker, he is a wholly owned property of Donald Trump, just like J.D. Vance would be, even though J.D. Vance used to say that Donald Trump might be Hitler. They're all Trump's property at this point if they get into leadership, right? And so my question is, what then becomes of the House of Representatives?
Right, Donald Trump is Speaker of the House if Kevin McCarthy were to win. And I want you to know we have no intention of losing the midterms. We have delivered, they have divided. But Kevin McCarthy, we would all be better off if his affair with integrity had lasted longer than a week. But he's gotten back together with the old big lie. And the party of the big lie is led by the biggest liar in Kevin McCarthy. And so there will be no backstop. There'll be no insurance policy. There'll be no guarantee that when the next coup or insurrection is planned, that the leader of the party, the Speaker of the House, would clamp down and prevent it from happening. In fact, he would just step aside and allow whatever Donald Trump preferred to take place.
Well, Michael Ludwig, who is a very conservative legal scholar and former judge, has said that openly. He did a CNN.com piece, which he said, and he laid out all the different ways in which they are 100% planning to steal the 2024 election and lock in whoever it is, Trump or whoever, DeSantis, whoever they run. Let me play for you very quickly Chairman Benny Thompson. And he was asked by our Ali Vitale here at NBC about these leaked texts. Take a look.
I think for somebody to, in leadership or any member, make a statement about his non-participation or opinions, and ultimately it's found out that that's the complete opposite, it does not bode well for members of Congress. People send us here to be truthful.
As true as that is, and he's a very calm man, Benny Thompson, he's a gentleman, but do you, inside of the Democratic caucus, do you think there is sufficient alarm about the clear determination up and down the ballot among Republicans from the state level all the way to the Congress and the United States Senate to implement the coup that failed last time and make it successful next time?
Yes, Joy. The fear is that they are putting in place the building blocks to ensure that a Democrat would never win at the highest office again, and that there would never be a peaceful transition of power again, because there would never be a transition of power, because they, through anti-voting measures that they're putting in place, from the candidates that they're nominating. Look at Michigan, Joy. They have an attorney general candidate who is the Republican nominee who said he will put in jail the former attorney general if she loses. That's where their mindset is. Again, violence over voting. And by the way, with Kevin McCarthy as the leader, what Benny Thompson was alluding to there, he's lost the public trust, and it's up to the Republicans to nominate who they want to be their leader. If they want a 24-karat liar to be their leader, that's fine. We'll make sure the voters know about that. Kevin McCarthy is a member of the Gang of Eight. That is the most intense, deepest dive that anyone in the United States gets on our intelligence operations and national security plans and intentions. And he's proven himself to have been compromised by saying one thing and then publicly being shown to be a liar. And I don't think he should have that kind of access if he's not a trustworthy individual.
It is Friday, the 29th of April of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Yes, you know we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. The French 77s are virtually mixed and poured and ready for your imbibing virtual pleasure. I believe it's the best martini, the best cocktail for a decaying, colonializing society. I don't know. Okay. You know, in Apocalypse Now, or maybe you don't know, but in Apocalypse Now, in the original release, they excised the dinner party with the French people that were in Vietnam at the time. You know, the earlier colonizers. Yeah. We don't do anything on our own. We always have to learn it from somebody else, and then we take it to an extreme, don't we? Okay, so it looks like the GOP is an out-and-out seditious party. Is that what we're dealing with? And there are quite a few of them embedded within the government itself, and so that's why it's really hard to root them all out. And once you try to do something, you never know if you're going to have a horse's head at the end of your bed or if you're going to be sleeping with the fishes. You know that Deutsche Bank banker, or the whistleblower, though, he had been missing for a year, and then he ends up dead at a high school in Southern California. I wonder how that happened. Yeah, I know. They said, oh, well, he had a lot of drug problems, and he was like, this and that and this and that. Well, he ended up dead. He had been missing for a year, and then when he does appear, he's dead. So very convenient, isn't it? With the trademark symbol, by the way, it sounds very Putin-esque. Or it could be someone who has learned something from Putin. Could be both. I take the both part. Yep, the GOP is a wholly seditious party working at odds for what America is doing, apparently. I can't believe that there would be any number of elected officials who vote routinely against what this caucus votes against. I mean, are you working for Putin? Oh, I'm sorry, that's a rhetorical question, of course. We all know the answer. Because even if they don't think they are, because they're stooges. They concoct a lie, they believe the lie, and they start making policy to continue upholding their belief in the lie. That's how lies work, especially the big one. And Timothy Snyder put that in a very concise way in his books, and I think we should all read them. And he's not the first who has approached the academic understanding of what it is to use the big lie. Mm-hmm. All right. I mean, look at Madison Avenue. Look at him. Does anybody remember Madison Avenue, or do people only remember what they saw on, the TV show Mad Men? Probably that's all they remember. Well, what I remember is I was just a little kid. What do I know? But I saw the effect of it. We were right there. Okay? They weren't brainwashing us with the monosyllabic ingredients of the product that we were being sold. Yeah, I had this rule of thumb. If there were more than 4 syllables in one ingredient, maybe you don't want to eat it. Give me a whole grain. When you call it a whole grain, okay, I can understand that. 1 syllable of wood. Grain? I don't know. So, and, but I got to tell you, no one brainwashed us by the ingredients on the side of the package. All right? Because they didn't care what the ingredients were that were listed on the side of the package. What mattered was what was on the front. What was on the back. What was the thing that people saw the most? And what was it? By and large, it was a lie. Okay? But some lies are fun. All right? Who wants to be Captain Crunch? Yeah. All reality was once based on a lie, you know. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Even Heraclitus would have said it was the lie of the thing. Existence itself. All of existence is predicated upon a lie. Why are we getting metaphysical or worse in the morning? Because I don't recall. You know, I love that Marjorie Taylor Greene there. Yeah, Marjorie Greene, Taylor Greene. MTG. Gets all bent out of shape when Jim Acosta asks her some questions, like in a press scrum. I mean, come on. She comes out. How many times has she come out on the steps and berated Nancy Pelosi while Nancy Pelosi was giving a presser on the steps of, you know, the Capitol steps there, and Marjorie Taylor Greene will be off on the side screaming at her. And then Jim Acosta asks her just, you know, a regular journalist question, basically like, why are you a seditious lying biatch? And she just got all bent out of shape. You can't talk to me. I don't give you permission. What? Hey, lady. You know what? We all still think you're the pipe bomber planter. Okay? And if you want to be in some sort of weird authoritarian construct, well, prove your innocence, lady. Okay? None of this innocent until proven guilty if you want to live that way. I don't recall. She even did it to Ingraham there at the top. Ingraham says, did you tell Trump to declare martial law? You know, all she has to say is yes. And then Ingraham will say, damn, Elon Musk getting Twitter and Trump declaring martial law? What could be? I'm seeing starbursts. But no, she had to equivocate. She being MTG. I don't recall it, but if I did, see, we're already at the point where I don't recall, but if it did happen, anything you say against it is a misrepresentation, okay? So she gets to run for office because you know the Secretary of State Raffensperger is not going to touch that hot potato. He already knows what it's like to have a bunch of goose-stepping goons, and they're by and large would be on his side except for, you know, the fact that they've been turned into actual goose-stepping goons. Before, they just had this, I don't know, unconscious need to be dickheads, and so they became Southern Republicans. And now their need to be just total dickheads has superseded anything. You know, they're going to eat their own kids, and then they blame us. There's all these babies being eaten, and we don't know why. Because you're a zombie eating all the kids. Zombies don't know what the hell they're doing. And some might argue that a zombie doesn't even care. Just like a Republican. Just like a maggot. Now, rest assured, I am not comparing the Make America Greats comparable to an actual maggot, okay? Because an actual maggot has an actual function in nature that is good. But a maggot, all they are is about negativity and grievance and whining and whining and whining. God, you know, it doesn't matter how much money they have either. They just continue to whine. I like Elon Musk's understanding of politics. Yeah. Yeah, about how it's the left that has moved so far to the left. Right, Ellen. Okay. Once again, just because we've been pretty much staying just to the right of Eisenhower, that doesn't mean that we've been moving to the left. When have we ever been to the, even close to Trotsky? Like, I would ever want that to happen. Because we don't. We like an interstate highway system, okay? And we like pretty much an electric grid. It would be nice to have something, that was renewable and all of that, wouldn't it? We like that. Okay? We don't call that socialism. We call that being the United States of America. Like a handshake. But apparently there's a strong contingent of states, and I don't know why it sort of tracks with the Old South. I don't know why that would be. That's being rhetorical, isn't it? But regardless, they seem to want to secede from the United States of America and nullify the Constitution of such. All under the auspices of, we're doing it for free speech. We're doing it for your Second Amendment rights. We're now even doing it for the Fifth Amendment. I don't recall. You recall, and probably the only thing she doesn't recall is, why she didn't arm the pipe bombs. She had one job to do. So we got lucky, didn't we? Pipe bombs were not armed, but they were there. And it kind of makes me a little worried now what we're finding out about the Secret Service, that Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, not just Kamala, now we might do that as like a term of endearment, but they have appropriated her first name and turning it into a pejorative, just like Obama. Remember, Obamacare was supposed to be an insult. The Obama phone. Everybody goes, God, I want one of those. And they said, oh, God, we made a mistake. But they're trying to make Kamala a pejorative. So you know what? She's Madam Vice President, pal. So it just makes me a little worried that the security detail, who were already assigned to Kamala Harris, I don't know, didn't evacuate her from the building when there was a pipe bomb right in front of it. They didn't even know. They don't do a sweep around the perimeter. Makes me a little worried, doesn't it? Doesn't it make you? So there might be a reason why Garland is being quiet. Do you blame him? Like I said, you don't know if you're going to wake up with a horse's head severed at the foot of your bed. Or you're going to be, with old Luca Brasi and the fishes. You never know. I'm not getting in the car, Tim. Yeah, even Pence knew what was up. I don't know. We're just going to take him to a safe space. Yeah, with Jimmy Hoffa. Safe for you. All right. What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Oh, you know what? All this time I wanted to make mention about one observation that has occurred. And I've heard this before from folk. And now I'm kind of experiencing it myself. In my mom's sad but true mental decline, because she does have dementia, Alzheimer's, she has been very prone to the most outlandish conspiracy type theories, like convinced that some guy's been walking in front of the house with a shotgun. Any number of other things, I mean, she's aware that if she brings it up, that it does seem like it would be something that the rest of us would say, now, Mom, that's no. So I try to be gentle about it because it's my mom. And And before, when we could be argumentative, the idea was that, through facts that you could prove to, whoever you were debating, even your mom, that the understanding of her position might be misunderstood. And so, of course, we all know in our long lives the little tightrope to walk there, that not to insult our moms or dads, our elders. And now we're elders. Okay. But, so, it's my mom, and so I gently sort of dissuade her from it, but she's aware still that there are some things that she knows that if she mentions, that she'll be dissuaded from it, and that's just an acknowledgement that, of her mental decline, and it's sad. But I have to say, even though I restrict her use of, viewing Fox, because it would have been really bad, I gotta tell, it was bad. But it's something that is very similar to what we're seeing out there in the wild. These people are suffering from severe dementia. Onset Alzheimer's. You can't cut into these people's brains now, of course. Though I don't know. Maybe we should start doing that. See what's there, if anything. No, I kid. But I do wonder, because this tendency on the right wing to fall into the most outlandish scenarios, in full belief of it, by the way, convinced that what they are seeing is what they are seeing and everybody else is wrong, to the point that it pisses them off. But the only thing that's different is that my mom has a tremendous amount more self-reflection than we're seeing out in the wild. So I don't know if being gentle will work, and obviously, being tough is going to make it tough, right? Okay. Maybe there's some sort of chemical fix. Do we really want that? A brave new world? I don't. Okay, what's on the rest of the menu here? Starting off in the Bistro Cafe, yes, at the top, McCarthy has proven himself to have been compromised. He is. He's a little weasel. On the rest of the menu, Ron DeSantis is waging an all-out war on Florida resident civil rights. 16 states are suing the United States Postal Service to halt the purchases of thousands of Louis DeJoy's gas-guzzling mail trucks. And California subpoenaed ExxonMobil as part of a first-of-its-kind broader investigation into the petroleum industry for its role in causing a global plastic pollution crisis. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg said Finland and Sweden could become members of the 30-nation military organization quite quickly. And UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres condemned attacks on civilians as Russian missiles struck Kyiv during his visit there with Zelenskyy. Putin lobbed missiles in Kyiv while the UN Secretary-General was meeting with Zelenskyy to talk about a peace accord right after Guterres had visited with Putin. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the left across the page from that chat room link near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon site, and you know why that's there, because if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, and if you could possibly send us what you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink, for instance, if you can send those funds our way, we're able to stretch those dollars beyond compare, pay our bills, fly under the radar, and continue this little powerhouse of resistance against forces, dark forces arrayed against not only the United States of America, but representative democracy worldwide. And we're not going to let it happen. We're not. Okay? So, thank you for your generosity. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thanks, Tom. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary. Yeah, I'm one of those old school Daily Kos types. It's a diary. Anyway, the show notes and links can be found there. And of course, that's where you find the full reportage from the actual sources who reported. And that's very important, because what we're doing here is, we're a salon. We're just conjecturing, aren't we? Yes, we are. You can also follow Netroots Radio. I'm sorry, you can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., 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 etc. And you can also find the deep archive of the Netroots Radio Library at the Internet Archive at archive.org. Okay, I got it out. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is by Adrian Cole from the American Independent. This month alone, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has passed several pieces of legislation of deep concern to civil rights activists. I would say every thinking American. On Monday, DeSantis signed a bill to create a special police force dedicated to monitoring elections. A goon squad to intimidate black voters and Hispanic voters and whoever they deem that might be against their will. You know how that's going to work. Following what is a national playbook for Republicans after Trump's insistence that the 2020 election was rigged. They rigged it so good that they didn't work, and that's why they're pissed off. So DeSantis addressed governor fraud in his state, even with virtually no evidence of it, except for in the villages, and they all tried to vote for Trump. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, from their dead wives and husbands even. Even their dead parents. They tried to vote for their dead parents. A vote for Trump is a vote for, I don't know, not democracy. On April 15th, DeSantis banned 54 math textbooks from Florida public schools for supposedly containing material related to critical race theory and social and emotional learning. Oh, yeah, well, we don't want any of our kids to have any empathy for another human being. Yeah, you can't be a Nazi if you have empathy for another human being. On April 14th, DeSantis signed a 15-week ban on abortion for most pregnant people, including victims of rape, incest, and human trafficking, making Florida the latest GOP-controlled state to enact an extreme abortion ban. And last week, DeSantis signed a bill that would sunset Disney's special tax and governance area, known as the Reedy Creek Improvement Area, which is, of course, home to Disney World. And Disney's special status, which went into effect in 1967, allows it to collect taxes and issue bonds. It also exempts it from most state regulations because the state regulations aren't strict enough. They had to enact their own more strict building codes, by the way, and the bill was passed in response to Disney's opposition to the governor's other legislative initiative, the Parental Rights and Education Bill, known as the Don't Say Gay Bill. Well, after a long silence on the issue, Disney CEO Bob Chapek was finally prompted by employees to criticize the bill. And so I don't know which pissed off DeSantis more. That these lowly socialist commie workers were telling the boss what to do? Or that they were actually just, I don't know, confronting DeSantis on a ridiculous fight. Now, of course, we know that the state of Florida, not just those counties, but the state of Florida will be on the hook for $1 billion in bond. And I don't even think that legally DeSantis can actually disincorporate Reedy Creek. And we know that. And, of course, all of this is to hide the most egregious effort on DeSantis' part, and that's by he unilaterally drawing congressional districts that got rid of 2 black districts, one of which was Val Deming's district, to consolidate more power into the GOP. Just don't call them Nazis. Don Thompson of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. California's Attorney General yesterday, Thursday, subpoenaed ExxonMobil as part of what he called a first-of-its-kind broader investigation into the petroleum industry for its role in causing a global plastic pollution crisis, allegations that the company called meritless. Attorney General Rob Bonta said the industry for decades has encouraged the development and use of petroleum-based plastic products while seeking to minimize public understanding that their widespread use harms the environment and public health. I mean, look at the great plastic island floating in the Pacific called the Great Pacific Plastic Patch. Bonta will consider whether petrochemical companies violated the law with what he called their historic and ongoing efforts to deceive the public. Bonta said ExxonMobil was subpoenaed as a major source of global plastics pollution and for its prominent role in public deception regarding plastics. But David Sharp brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, which should have been the middle offering, but there you go. Here we go. California and 15 states that want the U.S. Postal Service to electrify its mail delivery vehicles are suing to halt purchases of thousands of gas-powered trucks as the agency modernizes its delivery fleet. 3 separate lawsuits filed yesterday, Thursday, by the states and environmental groups in New York and California ask judges to order a more thorough environmental review before the Postal Service moves forward with the next generation delivery vehicle program. Plaintiffs contend that purchases of fossil fuel power delivery vehicles will cause environmental harm for decades to come. The lawsuits could further delay the Postal Service efforts to replace the ubiquitous delivery trucks that went into service between 1987 and 94. Louis DeJoy's gas-guzzling fleet guarantees decades of pollution with every postcard and package, said Scott Hochberg, an attorney for the Center for Biological Diversity, referring to the Postmaster General. He got embedded there somehow. Attorneys general from 16 states, 14 of which have Democratic governors because the rest of them who are Republicans, you know what they are. Well, they sued in San Francisco, a separate lawsuit by the Center for Biological Diversity, Earth Justice, Clean Air Now, Kansas City, and Sierra Club was filed in the same venue. Another was filed by the Natural Resources Defense Council and the United Auto Workers in New York. All three of them target the environmental review underpinning the Postal Service's planned purchase of up to 165,000 next-generation delivery vehicles over the next decade. Stop DeJoy. All right, let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, hang on. A Michael Bay film has a certain look to it. Namely, it cuts right to the action and is usually pretty stripped down when it comes to plot. His latest offering, Ambulance, is mostly true to form, but surprisingly has a lot more in the way of substance. It's about family, specifically two very different brothers and the ties that bind them. Along the way, it offers a rather scathing commentary on the state of the U.S. healthcare system. Ambulance is the story of two adopted brothers, Danny and Will, whose lives have taken very different paths. Danny has chosen to follow in the footsteps of their criminal father, whereas Will, a Marine Corps vet, has chosen the straight and narrow. That is, until Will's wife needs an experimental surgical procedure that an unfortunately accurately portrayed insurance company won't cover. At this point, Danny entices Will into helping out with a supposedly simple bank robbery, which could help pay for the wife's surgery. Big surprise, the simple robbery goes south, and all of a sudden the two perps and a couple of characters introduced earlier, one a star EMT, end up in a near full movie-length chase around LA featuring state-of-the-art ground and drone camera work and editing with pacing that'll literally leave you gripping your seat. Ambulance doesn't surprise often, but it does present a more interesting character study than usually found in this genre. Jake Gyllenhaal does an excellent job presenting Danny as funny, reckless, selfish, yet oddly endearing. Likewise, Yahya Abdul-Mateen plays Will as a complex man who makes a bad choice and not as a caricature. Add to this Isa Gonzalez as the cool-as-a-cucumber EMT, and this ambulance ride is well worth it. No health insurance plan needed. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
Hello, Science Talk audience. I'm Katie Hafner, the host of Lost Women of Science. Each season is devoted to the life and work of one scientist who hasn't gotten the recognition she deserves. We're calling this season A Grasshopper in Very Tall Grass, and it's all about Clara Dawn von Neumann. Clary, as she was called by friends, was one of the world's first computer programmers. I've been writing about computers for a really long time, more than 30 years, in fact. I even wrote a history of the internet in 1996 called Where Wizards Stay Up Late. And the wizards? All men. I've been on this beat for so long, I thought I knew all the major figures. But then I stumbled upon Clara von Neumann's name this past year, and I drew a blank. How had I missed her? When I asked some big hitters in the computer science world about her, they all had the same response. Who? I couldn't shake this feeling that here was this truly lost woman of computing who was nonetheless connected to very well-known histories and people. She was involved in nuclear weapons research. She worked for Los Alamos. She coded for the ENIAC, one of the earliest electronic computers. And she ran in a circle of famous scientists, people like Albert Einstein, J. Robert Oppenheimer, and her own husband, John von Neumann, a famous Hungarian scientist who was considered one of the smartest people alive. I thought Clary could teach us a thing or two about this time, the dawn of electronic computers and nuclear warfare, and so we started digging. This season is the result of what we found. Here's the trailer.
Do I know who Clara von Neumann is?
I'm embarrassed to say I've never heard of her.
Did she have something to do with the weather?
I've heard of John von Neumann.
I'm not even sure how to pronounce her name.
Was she related to Newman on Seinfeld?
I'm Katie Hafner, host of Lost Women of Science, where we explore the work and lives of overlooked female scientists.
What Clara von Neumann is doing is helping to define what is possible on this new kind of machine.
She ultimately became a kind of super programmer.
Their stories are often untold, their contributions unacknowledged.
Clary's role was sort of hidden because she had worked on the very secret bomb calculations.
Women got to be programmers and got to make such a huge impact on the history of programming because that job was not seen as being important.
In 1947, it was Clara and her code that helped make nuclear weapons simulations possible.
Programming was this completely new discipline, so really everybody was starting on the ground floor, as it were.
She always said she liked it because she liked puzzles, and this was a kind of puzzle.
I mean, she's like at Los Alamos as someone with absolutely no training in physics or mathematics, talking one-on-one with Nobel Prize winners.
And she was working with a brand new technology deep inside a world forever changed by the atomic bomb.
There's this connection between death and computing that is inextricable.
Join us as we seek to understand the origins of modern computing through one extraordinary woman's story.
She was sort of there at the moment of creation. If you look at this as a sort of cradle in a manger sort of thing, she was holding the cradle.
Season 2 of Lost Women of Science, coming March 31st. Listen wherever you get your podcasts. This season will take us on a journey from wild parties in Budapest and gambling sprees in Monte Carlo to the staid academic world of Princeton and the wild west of Los Alamos in New Mexico. Clary's eventful life gives color to this pivotal moment in history. Married 4, maybe 5 times, figure skating champion, computer pioneer. How could we have missed her? Tune in to Lost Women of Science to get the full story of a grasshopper in very tall grass.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. By the time of Abraham Lincoln's second inaugural address on March 4, 1865, the Civil War was winding down. Lincoln spoke movingly about the tragic conflict by which the Union would be saved and slavery ended. He concluded with these memorable and magnanimous words: "With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and a lasting peace among ourselves, and with all nations." A short time later, on April 15, 1865, Lincoln was dead, the victim of an assassin's bullet. Secretary of War Edwin Stanton said, "Now he belongs to the ages." That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. When you stand up for civil rights and workers' rights, you never know how far the struggle may travel. This was the case on this day in labor history. The year was 1963. West Indian immigrants in Bristol, England, held a press conference to announce a boycott of the city buses. They were inspired by the bus boycotts led by Dr. Martin Luther King in Montgomery, Alabama. The Bristol Omnibus Company would not hire West Indian or black drivers. While the company would hire non-white workers for the garage, a color barrier stood between the West Indian workers and the more lucrative driving jobs. Even though the company had a driver shortage, they would take only white applicants. In 1962, 4 Jamaican men had founded the West Indian Development Council. The council aimed to address the unemployment and housing discrimination and threats of violence that West Indians faced every day. They were inspired by what they saw unfolding in the civil rights movement in the United States. They decided to take action. Some 7,000 West Indians in Bristol answered the call to boycott the buses. The bus company management blamed the drivers' union for the policy of discrimination. Indeed, some individual bus drivers spoke out that they did not want to work with West Indian people, but the union leadership adamantly denied they wanted the color barrier. The boycott wore on for 4 months, and in the end, finally, the color bar was lifted. That September, a Sikh named Ragbar Singh became the first non-white driver. The flame for justice that had been lit in Alabama had also caught fire in England. As we fight for workers' rights and social justice today, we must always remember our brothers and sisters who share our fight across the globe. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 48 degrees Fahrenheit, expected to be a bit warmer than yesterday, somewhere around the mid-70s or a tad warmer. A mix of clouds and sun early, followed by cloudy skies this afternoon. Winds out of the north at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Lows in the low 50s tonight, cloudy with an occasional light rain, bringing with it almost a quarter inch of light rain. And the winds will be out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And we're getting more than a tenth of an inch of rain tomorrow, with showers in the morning, then partly cloudy in the afternoon. Winds out of the west at 10 to 15 miles per hour. And then it looks like we may have intermittent rain showers and light rain throughout the week. So let us hope that that's true, because mineral water from the sky is always good. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon continue to rise. Keep wearing your masks. Keep washing your hands. Keep social distancing. We have now increased our confirmed cases to 430,033, and our deceased have notched another poor victim. We now are at 531. All right, let's see here. Grass pollen is rated as moderate outside the window in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is good at 36 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is high, notched up another notch to level 6. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.27 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is at 92%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 51 and cloudy. Paris is 68 and sunny. Rome is 75 and fair. Kyiv is 60 degrees and partly cloudy. Kabul is 65 and clear. Hong Kong is 81 degrees and fair. Tokyo is 50 degrees and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 72 and partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 50 degrees and fair. And New York, New York is 52 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg said yesterday, Thursday, that Finland and Sweden would be embraced with open arms should they decide to join the 30-nation military organization and could become members quite quickly. Stoltenberg's remarks came as public support in Finland and Sweden for NATO membership mounts in response to Russia's war in Ukraine. Media speculation in the two countries suggests the two might apply in mid-May. Both countries put an end to traditional neutrality by joining the EU in 1995 and deepening cooperation with NATO. However, a majority of people in both countries remained firmly against full membership in the alliance until now.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
David Keaton and Ina Veranitsia of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Ukrainian President Zelenskyy accused Russia of trying to humiliate the United Nations by raining missiles on Kyiv during a visit to the city by the UN Secretary-General, an attack that shattered weeks of relative calm in the capital. Russia pounded targets all over Ukraine, hitting a residential high-rise and another building in Kyiv, just as life seemed to be getting a little closer to normal. U.S.-funded broadcaster Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, said one of its journalists was killed. Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko said the attack was Russian President Putin's way of giving Guterres his middle finger. Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty said the body of Vera Heinrich, a journalist who had worked for the broadcaster since 2018 and who lived in one of the buildings, was found in the rubble. Radio Free Europe President Jamie Fly said the broadcaster was shocked and angered by the senseless nature of her death at home in a country and city she loved. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up on Monday for River City Hash Mondays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night and all weekend for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here on Monday, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.